You're not going to want to miss this episode of the AI Show where we lift and shift Anomaly Detector down. It's going to be pretty cool. Hello, welcome to this episode of the AI Show where we're going to talk about the Anomaly Detector, but with a special use case. Why don't you introduce yourself, my friend?
I'm Chun from AI Platform team. I'm the PM of Anomaly Detector.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So in a previous episode, we'll put a link below so you can watch it, we talked about the Anomaly Detector. But there's got to be some challenges with running it in a service like that. Can you talk about those?
Yeah, because Anomaly Detector, as we introduced in our previous episode, it's a hosted API service on the cloud. Mm-hmm. The endpoint is West US2 something, right? Mm-hmm. That means your data needs to send over to the cloud. And you will send over, what you send over is time series, right? It's a lot of data. So our customers actually has come to us with a few questions.
Right.
Let me go to the first
Let's go
one.
through them.
So first one is basically kind of a production line. A customer in the manufacturing industry came to us. It was like, hey, we got this data, but the data is like tons of data. We don't want to send that over to the cloud and wait for the latency. I mean, we trust your service. Your service will run with good performance,
right.
But the connectivity is really a challenge there. So we need something that's close to our data. Yeah, so that's one of the challenges that.
And that makes sense because if you're running like an IoT device, it's outputting, like let's just say you're doing a timestamp every second.
Yeah.
This starts to add up if you have hundreds of devices, and if you have to upload a gigabyte just to detect an anomaly, just maybe downloading that will cause you to get into a sensitivity area where like it's too late, the anomaly already passed.
Yes, although that we will recommend aggregation before you send over the data, but still that's a lot of data.
Got it.
Yeah, and then the second customer is actually coming from the financial. I'm not going to make up the name, but this is a real case that the customer come to us like we need to follow regulation, follow laws that we don't want to send any sensitive data. They can do masking, they can do anything, but still it's sensitive financial data. They don't want to send it over to the cloud.
Right.
Although Microsoft runs trusted cloud, but it's the law, right? It's a regulation.
And I had people like this, like at a hospital, for example, that they have laws in their country that says you cannot upload this form to the cloud, even if it's safe, right?
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, it's about sensitive data. It's about personal information. So you don't want to send that over to a cloud.
Right.
And the third challenge is about, it's coming from an oil rig. It's from one of our ISVs, Microsoft ISVs, came over to us and was like, hey, we got this application, which is really cool. I mean, an oil rig solution, but we already using your Anomaly Detector APIs on the cloud, and we have everything, the C# code ready there. Can we run it without connection to your cloud endpoint? Mm-hmm. Can we run it in our rig? Can we run it close to our data? I was like, okay, yes. So that's talking about consistency, cloud consistency, because they are running the cloud endpoint and they're running Azure Stack for their on-prem solution. So which means they need to and they want to have consistent code running everywhere.
I see.
Yeah.
So you talked about latency, you talked about, I don't know if it was security, but maybe privacy, and then lastly, consistency.
Yes.
What are we doing to solve these issues?
Yes. So that's the service that we are shipping actually back in May. We announced the public preview of Anomaly Detector containers.
I see.
So containers, as Docker containers, is going to address all those challenges. I think the thing about containers is you can run it everywhere. So like Anomaly Detector containers is basically the same service, the same APIs with the same flavor of the cloud service, the hosted cloud service that you can run in your container infrastructure.
Got it.
And those container infrastructure could be Kubernetes. So you can start with Kubernetes on the cloud. That's AKS service, Azure Kubernetes service. Also Azure Container Instance, and also Kubernetes cluster, and that's running on your on-prem infrastructure like Azure Stack or your traditional clusters. Also Docker, of course. If you have a laptop like mine, you can run the container there, no problem. So this is why that we ship the service in the same flavor to your container.
And that's amazing. So it's a Docker container. So anything you can do with Docker, a Docker container, you can do with this. Now, can you give us a sense for, like, for example, how do I pay for this service?
Yeah.
How do I install it? How do I use it? Can you give us maybe a little demo and a rundown of how this works?
That's a good question. So we, when we ship containers, we were thinking about, hey, there are cases when air-gapped infrastructure that has no connection to the internet at all will want to run these containers. However, we started with this containers, the version that actually still require a connection to the internet. But this is all about the billing telemetry. There's no customer data going to the cloud anymore. So the way that, or the experience that our customers will face to use the containers, the first step is always about creating the Anomaly Detector resource on the cloud.
I see.
If you watch our last episode, you see that if you create a resource on Azure portal, there will be this API endpoint and this API key. What you need to use, the leverage is actually both of them. The API key is the key that will have your container running and have us billing the usage.
I see.
And the API endpoint is where your billing telemetry is going to the cloud.
So if I'm understanding it right, basically you're downloading the container and the only information that's ever coming back to Microsoft is the key to the telemetry so that you know how many times it's been called. So
the
we can
billing telemetry.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, there's nothing like, hey, your data or the pattern of your data. No, we don't check that and we don't send over that to the cloud.
That's pretty cool.
Yes. So with the resource, and the second thing you want to do is to download the image because it's container image. So far as we speak, the container image is not on Docker Hub, not on MCR, Microsoft Container Registry yet. We actually hosted it in a private Azure Container Registry. And so you need to go to this URL, ak.ms/ad container, to apply for the credentials to access it.
I see.
And once you got that, because this is it's not complex, but eventually we will release the containers. But with that, you are going to run the container locally with the key and the endpoint that you got from the cloud.
It's almost like I'm trying to envision. It's basically like the service, but running locally.
Exactly.
Okay.
The same service.
I see.
I'm going to show you later, but this is how it works.
And I think this is important to recognize that it's the same service, the same billing structure. You're calling it the same way that we did because we had a notebook that we used. You basically changed the endpoint to localhost 8080 if that's what you're running, and that's how it works.
Yes, exactly.
All right, let's see it in action.
Sure. I'm going to show you a demo container. So the first thing you want to do is actually go to the AD container form to submit your scenario, and we will review and give you the credential to download the images. With that, what you're gonna do is, I'm going to show my sticky notes here. So we will give you a password and a username. With that combination, you will want to use Docker login. We have a documentation on Azure technical documentation website, so you can follow everything there. I'm doing basically exactly the same thing. So let me spin up another command window. So this is Docker login. You log into the Azure Container Registry that hosts the image. And the second step, you're going to pull the image.
So this is basically regular, standard Docker commands. It's not anything special.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
It's if you are a Docker guy, you will know that this is not something that's new. And well, there's something new here now.
Yeah.
So as you can see, if you want to run the container image that you pulled with Docker pull of Anomaly Detector, we actually need to specify 3 unique parameters. So these are the standard Docker parameters. Now, you need to accept the user agreement, license agreement, billing. This is the billing endpoint that you retrieve from your Anomaly Detector resource. And the key, that's the way that we bill you. So you need to specify all these three, and with Docker run, yeah, give me a second. Or else it's quite straightforward. Now the application started on 5,000. Let's take a look.
There you go.
Yeah, this is the container. This is not any container. It's Azure Cognitive Service container. And this is Swagger, which basically is the API description and the test endpoint. So here you can actually try it out. Yeah, I'm going to try it out here. And as you can see, there's this input parameter, which is time series, this timestamp and a measure. And you don't have to specify the key here again, because this Docker image was spun up with the key.
Oh,
so,
I see.
Yeah, it means if you call the API without a key, it will still work, because all transactions are built with that key already. That's
I see.
The Docker under the hood. And then let me click the execute button. And as you can see,
there you
it's
go.
loading. Yeah. This is the result of the response body here.
That's
There's
cool.
A few things maybe you want to notice. There's the expected value, margin, up margin, lower margin, and whether the last data point is anomaly. Because I'm running this against the /last API. We will talk about it in our later shows, but this is how it works, and it works exactly the same way with a cloud endpoint, except for this.
Yeah.
You're calling the local endpoint now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. Where can people go to find more?
Sure. So always start with this AD container form. You will get the credentials, and then we do the review pretty fast. So you fill the form and got the credentials, pour the image, and then if you need help, if you want to chat with the engineering team and chat with other members in the community, we have a Microsoft Teams group.
That's cool.
Yeah, you can always click and apply and join it. And finally, if you haven't watched the last episode, you can watch that, or you can go to aka.ms/anomaly detector, or search it on Bing to get an overview and the technical documentation about Anomaly Detector.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for spending some time with us.
You're
Thanks so
welcome,
much for
Tess.
watching. We've been learning about containers using Anomaly Detector on containers. We'll see you next time. Take care.